Hello, hello. Welcome, welcome. I hope you're having a wonderful evening wherever you are. And I'm so excited today to talk a little bit about something that I think is so pertinent in the wellness and personal development journey, and something that I think the most people struggle with. It's overcoming the fear of failure. What that looks like, some practical steps that we can take to do that, what failure is and isn't, and so on and so forth. So, if you're joining with me live here on Instagram, then I always love hearing from you. Feel free as we're going through the session to drop any questions or comments that you have down in the bottom. Or if you're watching this afterwards, then you can leave those in the comment section below, and I will be more than happy to get to those as well. So as you're ready, let's just ground in together here for a moment. If you like, you can close your eyes. Or if you're out and about, maybe if you're catching this on the go, if you'd like, you can find a place of stillness and settle in, tune in with me here. Maybe close the eyes, bring your hand up to your heart, and take a few deep breaths. Through the nose, out through the mouth, making some noise with your breath here. A few more, just like that. Dropping down into your seat, relaxing your shoulders and your neck, your jaw and your hips. Releasing your hand, opening up your eyes. Hi, Steve's watching from the other room. Hi, Katie. Chris, hi. Wow, what an honor. I love your videos. You're hysterical. Thanks for coming in, guys. So today we're going to be talking about overcoming the fear of failure and what that looks like. So first, I just want to start off by talking a little bit about what a life outside of this fear of failure can look like, right? Because I think so often fear is the thing that stops people from choosing the life that they desire. Fear is the thing that stops people from going after their goals and their desires, and potentially then changing the world because of that, right? And I know a lot of you maybe resonate with this and feel like fear is something that holds you back on a regular basis, right? So it's kind of a sad truth that people will often subconsciously choose a life that isn't exactly what they want, or a life of mediocrity, because this fear is holding them back from what it is that they actually desire. And fear is holding them back from stepping into their innate truth of power and sovereignty. And I think that's something that we all deserve, and it's something that we're all capable of, right? And so we're going to talk a little bit about what that looks like and how to get that today. And you ever see me glancing over here to the side? That's just where my notes are, keeping me organized so I can give you guys what I intended to give you here. So I first want to put in your mind that if you can, when you do overcome this fear of failure, then I truly do believe that there isn't anything that you can't accomplish. Now, I know that sounds super hippy-dippy right now. Obviously, there's a lot of hard work and motivation, action, and intention that goes into that too. It's not like we just poof and wish and then everything goes as we plan because we've overcome our fears, right? You do still have to put a lot of work and effort into it, but overcoming that fear is that first step that so many people don't even make it to, right? So many people are held back by their fears, their what ifs, their subconscious thoughts, their subconscious doubts, right? Their insecurities, that they don't even make it to that first step. Right? So that should be such a strong motivation to know that even if you just make it to the first step of trying, of applying yourself, of taking that first step towards your goal, towards your dreams, then you're already so much ahead of half the people in the world, because you've taken that first step, because you've been able to step over that boundary of fear and begin to step into that space of you claiming the life of your dreams and the life that you desire, right? So then just imagine once you start applying yourself and working hard and getting up after you fall, how much farther even then you'll be than people, right? So it is all possible for you, and I do want you to feel that unshakably in yourself and in your truth, that this is possible for you, because I really do believe that it is, right? So first, just a little bit of a misconception that I think a lot of people have about this kind of work and about overcoming your fears is I think a lot of people assume that you have to be fearless, or that it's just kind of something that some people have to be fearless, and successful people have to be fearless in order to get where they are. And we'll go into a little bit more about why that's not true, but it's all about learning to work around your fear and strengthen your mindset more than anything, right? So it's not about just removing all of your fears and turning yourself into something that you're not, because fear is an innately human response and it does serve us in a lot of ways, but it's more about tapping into the right mindset around this, right? And we'll talk about this one there's one notion that I've applied to overcoming this fear of failure that I think is super important, and it's about rooting your awareness back into the present moment, because I think so much of fear is either rooted in the past or the future, right? And so I know that I am a spirituality and mindfulness teacher, so no surprise that I would be able to find some sort of mindfulness lesson in this, but so much of fear does either take its root in the past or the future. And so I think the core of what we're going to be talking about today, and the core of overcoming this fear of failure, is all about bringing yourself back into the present moment. And we'll go through a step-by-step process sort of how you can do that here. So I just want you to imagine for a moment, and we can even close our eyes here if you'd like for this moment. Imagine what your life could be like in 5 years, let's say. In 5 years, if you could totally step outside of your fear of failure, your insecurity, your sense of lack, your self-doubt, if you were able to step outside of those shackles and just fearlessly chase after your goals and your dreams for 5 years, right? Where do you think that you could be? Right? It is so inspiring and exciting to think about and visualize here for yourself. And I really do want you, if you're not already, close your eyes and take a moment to actually visualize this for yourself, because this is going to come in handy for us even a little bit later. Right? So what would that vision, what does that life look like for you? Right? When you are waking up every morning, feeling completely aligned and inspired and capable. When you are taking actions, doing work every day that inspires and fulfills you. And when you are no longer held back from doing things that you really want to do because you're just a little bit afraid of the what ifs. Right? You're no longer living from a what if. You're living with what is. You can open your eyes. I love visualizations. I think they're always so powerful and so fun, but especially in this practice, we'll talk a little bit about a more kind of concrete visualization that we can help. So what we're going to go over here this evening is what fear actually is, what it's not, and how to overcome it. And then the bread and butter here, I'm going to take you through this 4-step framework that I've come up with to overcoming fear of failure in the moment, right? So you can take it and apply it with you. And then we are going to go over some journal prompts for diving deeper into this work. So let me know if you guys are here live. Let me know if you're feeling it. I don't know if the heart button is still there, but hit your little heart button in the corner if you're here and you're ready and you're excited for this, because I'm really excited to get into this for you guys today. So let's get started. Hey Angela, hey Amber, Allie. Oh, yay hearts. Thank you. My need for approval has been sufficed. Hey Katie. It's my, probably shouldn't, it's like revealing the Oz behind the curtain. Is my boyfriend in the other room that's giving me hearts too. That's why we're laughing. Oh gosh. Thank you, Britt. Oh, and okay, so let's go into this here first. First things first, I want to address in more depth those objections that we talked about here in the very beginning, right? People often believe that successful people are totally fearless, right? They see this life of success and ease and abundance, and they kind of instantly write it off as something that's not for them, right? Let me know if you've ever felt anything like this. If you see someone else that is super successful, super wealthy, island in Fiji, and hosts wonderful retreats and excursions, whatever, all the time, and you're just like, man, that would be so cool if that were me. I wish I could do that. But that's just not, I'm not that fill in the blank. I'm not that smart. I'm not that wealthy. I'm not that smart. I'm not that X, Y, and Z, right? We always kind of place it outside of us. We think that it's something else, that someone else must have some magic sauce, some magic juice that they can do this with, and it's not for us, right? I know a lot of us have felt that way. I felt that way a lot of the ways. Hey, Oko, Lindsay, or Ryan. But that's not true, right? And I know kind of a lot of us, you already innately know that, right? Especially if you're in this wellness and spirituality space. The second that you kind of place that power outside of yourself, you're immediately starting back a foot, right? It's that first step is to put that power and that empowerment back in yourself. And I know that a lot of us know that, but the application of it is where it kind of gets really hard always, right? The hardest part is the practice of it. But the people who we idolize and the people who we look after, they are not fearless, right? They have fears all the time. One of the people that I most look up to is Rachel Brathen, our yoga girl, and she is so open and vulnerable about feeling those kinds of emotions all the time, which is one of the reasons why she's such a well-respected leader in our space, is because she is so emotionally vulnerable and open, right? She talks about how she does experience fear and pain and grief on a day-to-day basis, and that sort of breaks that fourth wall between us, the normal people, and the successful people, right? And it lets us know that they're humans too. They're feeling real feelings too, right? So the people that you idolize and the people that you are looking up to, don't think that they have it because they're fearless and you can't get there because you have all these fears, right? They feel them too. They've just learned to kind of work through them and maybe quiet them a little bit and just do the damn thing anyway, right? So that's gonna kind of be what we talk about and how to get to that point today. Because usually what it is people feel that sense of fear and they let it paralyze them, right? Not for all negative reasons, right? You feel fear and that's your body's way of telling you that you should stop something. But where our fear response is more generally meant to keep us from like walking into a sleeping lion's den so we get eaten, nowadays we let it keep us from wearing the outrageously colored pants that we want to wear because we're afraid people will think we're too extra, right? So we've kind of taken our fear response and given it a weird little voice afterwards. But so instead of letting your fear paralyze you, you have to use it as a tool to kind of propel you and help push you forward, right? And so we're going to talk a little bit about how to do that. Okay, Britt, see you afterwards. Okay, so the fear of failure, what is it at its core and what isn't it? So the fear of failure oftentimes isn't really attached to a fear. It's not that we're afraid of something. Often what it is it's a form of self-doubt and it's a form of insecurity coming forward, right? When we are afraid of failure, We're afraid of something that we're insecure about coming to the surface, right? We're afraid that others are going to know, or others are going to see that we're not good enough, or that we're not smart enough, right? Or we're not successful enough. Or we convince ourselves that we're not even smart enough to attempt, or we think that we're frauds because we're not capable or we're not able, right? And so this is kind of where you can maybe start to see this past versus the future timeline planning out. Whereas one thought process that says, oh, I'm a fraud, I'm not smart enough, I'm not successful enough, that's a past mindset where you've taken a narrative that's been developing over your life and you're letting that fuel your decisions. And the other one, oh, what if they laugh at me? What if they see that I don't know what I'm talking about? That's all in the future, right? So you can kind of see where those past and future markers are coming in, and where instead what we would like to be is rooted in the present and how to get away with that. So when we're experiencing and acting out of this fear of failure, we're really projecting the fears and the insecurities of our ego onto our actions, right? And then we're not taking action that is aligned with our highest self, is a big term that we use in the wellness space. And you can think of your highest self just like your best self. If you believe in God, spirit, universe, whatever, it's the part of you that is intrinsically attached to that entity. It's just your best version of yourself, right? So when we're acting out of fear, we're acting out of a space of insecurity and a space of lack, and not out of that best self, right? And that's ideally not what we want to do. We want to act out of our best self so that we can be our best selves. And a lot of times what that turns into is just inaction in general, no action. So to overcome this fear of failure, we have to remove ourselves from that debilitating narrative of our weaknesses and our unworth, and open up to the truth of our potential, right? And the truth of our highest self. So if you guys, let me know if you guys are ready for that, if that sounds like something that you would be good for. I know I'm ready for it. So to overcome this fear of failure, we have to realize another important thing. Oh, yay! So glad you love it. To overcome this fear of failure, we have to realize another important thing that might be a little, I don't know, not controversial to say, but I don't know how many people are going to agree with it, that I don't really think that there is such a thing as failure. And if there is, it's only the failure that we create for ourselves in our own eyes. I think that we can fall down a lot, and we can flub, and we can botch things, and we can do things not in the best way, but the only time that you would fail at something is if you messed it up and then you just quit and you never tried ever again. But if you fall down, you have the choice and you have the ability to stand back up and try again, right? So then it's not failing, right? The only failure that we have is in our own eyes, right? So you can just fall down, you can get up, fall down, get up. You can do that 25 times over. You only have to succeed for most things one time to make it count, right? So you can fall down as many times as you have to in order to get to that space. But then once you get up and once you succeed, right, then it makes all of the failure, all of the falling count for it, right? So maybe even just that thought, if that's the only thing that you take away from this, that I don't really even think, and I would invite you to adopt this way of thinking, that failure isn't even real. We can fall down, and we will fall down a lot, but I don't think there is such thing as failure. And maybe the strongest empowering thing that you can do is just invite yourself to fall down a few times in order to get up and try again, right? Sometimes that's the hardest thing, right? Our egos don't want to fall down. We don't want to look silly. We don't want to feel like we're inadequate in any way, right? But sometimes it's what has to happen in order for us to get to that further step along the journey, right? In order to become that next level version of ourselves that is going to be able to bring that success and that light into the world. Oko, it is true that most successful people have like 10 plus large failures to each success. Yeah, 110%. 100%. I think it was a quote from Jay Shetty. He's an author of a book called Think Like a Monk, which is really great. But he was saying that the super successful people, they don't have any like secret sauce. most of the time, they're just knocking on way more doors than most people, right? You just gotta keep putting yourself out there, keep going, right? And sometimes that's the hardest part. Yay, Katie loves it too. Okay, so bread and butter time. And I even made an acronym, guys. I was so proud of myself for this. So I came up with this 4-step framework that you can use if you're experiencing fear of failure, but we'll see if you guys have any specific situations. You can pop them into the chat and we can work through them. This might work for all fears. I don't know. I didn't run it through every test in the book. I had fear of failure in my mind as I was creating it, but we'll see where it goes and where it's able to take us. So this 4-step framework of working through your fear of failure in the moment and what that looks like. So it's not the best acronym, but the acronym is LTAC, LTAC. And so the first bit is listen to the feedback in your body. The second bit is time mark it, so figure out whether your fear is rooted in the past or the future. The third bit, ask questions. And the last little bit, connecting with your highest self. And we're gonna kind of dive a little bit deeper into that. So LTAC, I need a blackboard on the back so I can write it down. Okay, so first little bit, listen to your feedback. So this is kind of a crucial step in all mindfulness, all wellness practices, is to first and foremost listen to that feedback in your body when you are experiencing any sort of fear or fear of failure, because it's not a bad thing, right? It's not negative. We want to kind of move into a space where there are no good and bad emotions, right? It just is what it is, and it is as it shows up for you, and it is then a doorway where you can learn a lot about yourself too. So it's not something to be avoided or sort of resisted, right? So first, just listening to that feedback in your body, listening to that uncertainty and that fear. And you can even take a moment in the moment when you're experiencing fear, depending on the circumstances, to close your eyes and notice what it feels like in your body, right? You can even then label it with your mind. This is a meditation technique that you can utilize. You can label it in your mind as you're experiencing it, saying, oh, this is fear. This is me as a spiritual being experiencing fear. And so even just that little bit, it kind of distances it from you a little bit, and you are reminded that this sensation isn't inherent to you, right? It is just sort of a cloud on the sky of yourself, right? It's just something that is an experience that you're having, right? So listen to your body, listen to the feedback as you experience fear. This is me experiencing fear. This is what it feels like in my body. This is the response I'm having. Okay, I see you, I feel you, I'm with you. All right, so this is the first step. The second bit, to time mark it, right? So notice whether your fear is rooted in the past or the future. And we kind of started to talk about this a little bit, but I have the belief that almost all fear, especially fear of failure, is rooted either in past or future. And it's taking us away intrinsically from the present moment, which is where we want to be, right? So if you're worried about a certain outcome, i.e. like people laughing at you or saying that you're a failure, or then that's a fear of the future, right? Or you might be letting ideas, thought patterns, and previously shaped ideas about yourself or the situation. If you're letting those things affect your decision, then that is a fear that's rooted in the past, right? And oftentimes with a situation, you're probably going to have a little bit of both, right? So just taking a moment to notice those, and then we can use those to help reroute us to the present moment. The third little bit here of LTAC A is ask questions. So I have kind of two different segments of questions depending on whether it's past or future fear. For the future, you can ask yourself, and you can write this down if you want to. We will have kind of specific journal prompts towards the end that I'll give us some time to go into, but these are just the in-the-moment questions to ask yourself as you're working through this. For your future-based fear, you can ask yourself, what am I worried will happen? And I really hesitated to give you guys this because I don't want this to turn into like a thought spiral moment where you're like, oh my God, these are all the things that could possibly happen, right? So kind of rein yourself in a little bit here, even if you need to. If you are journaling about this, you can set a timer and just give yourself the space to let those thoughts exist, but kind of, right, resist the urge to just spiral down with this. So what am I worried will happen? And then is the outcome I fear truly a failure, right? So if you're worried about before you go on your Instagram live, oh my God, what if no one shows up and I look stupid? Okay. Is that outcome really a failure? Right? Are you actually going to look stupid? Is anyone even going to notice? Is anyone going to care? Or are you going to make yourself feel stupid because you are going to make yourself feel unworthy because no one showed up for you? Right? So kind of taking that thought process. For past questions, you can ask yourself, what supposed truths about myself and this situation am I believing here? And are these actual truths? Right? So before you get on your Instagram live, if you're thinking, oh my gosh, no one's going to show up because I'm a fraud and I don't know what I'm talking about. So they're going to laugh at me and everyone's going to call me out and say that I'm an idiot and I don't know what I'm talking about. Based on that truth that you're a fraud and you don't know what you're talking about, is that an actual truth, right? Do you know that that's an actual truth? Right? Most of the time it's not. Most of the time they're just stories that we tell ourselves. And this is also a time to kind of rectify just human-based fears of safety and stability, right? Because those will show up a little bit too, and we'll talk more about those in the example that I'll give. So this is also a time to give those too. Okay, and the last little bit here of LTAT, connect with your highest self and visualize yourself in your happiest, most successful, most glowing, snatched version of yourself that you could ever be, and ask yourself, how would they act in this situation? How would she respond to this fear of getting on Instagram Live? How would he respond to the fear of wanting to wear the purple polka dot shirt? I don't know, right? But taking yourself into that future vision of your highest self and the you that you really want to be, and bringing them into this moment and asking yourself how they would respond, right? Because if you get into this idea of quantum physics, then whoever you are, whoever you will be 20 years down the line, you're already that person right now, right? So just kind of calling that into this moment and acting and responding from that space, responding with intention and responding with the foresight that you are going to be who you want to be because you can. Yeah, so act like it. Okay, so I'm gonna take us through an example here, but I want to leave some time. Does anyone have any questions that have popped up here? Uh-oh, I'm out of water. Hey. Okay. Guys, I was so proud of myself for that little acronym. Thank you, Steve. My behind the scenes buddy. Okay. So I'll take you through kind of a quick demonstration here of how this would work in a little kind of fake scenario. And then if anyone's here live and you want to, you can drop another situation, even if it's something that you're dealing with specifically, in the comments, and then we can work through that one too. Okay, so here is our little example scenario of how to work through fear of failure. So say that you have been dreaming about going to Paris for your whole life, right? You've got the Pinterest board set up, you've binge watched Emily in Paris, you're all about it, you're scouting out dates, when you can go, and you've started dropping hints to your friends because you want people to go with you, right? You finally decided that you're gonna go, it's gonna be the year, it's gonna be great, so you're trying to get people to go with you, right? So you're trying to gauge the interests of your friends and people who might wanna go with you, and you get a few bites, but no one's really ready to like jump the ship and buy tickets and go with you, right? So finally your window for reduced airfare on Skyscanner is gonna close, so you have no one to go with you. Right, so finally your fear starts to set in because you realize that if you want to make this trip to Paris happen, then you're going to have to go by yourself, right? So the fear starts to creep in. So then what do? How do you respond to that? LTAC! So applying our 4-step framework to the situation, you want to go to Paris, but you're afraid because now you have no one else to go with you, and you don't want to go by yourself because you're afraid. So what does this situation look like? So first, of our 4-step program, listen, right? Take a moment to recognize your fear, right? Take a moment to sit with it, notice it, label it as fear. Say, oh, this is me experiencing this emotion of fear. That does not mean that it is inherent to me. That does not mean that it is inextricable from me. It is just an experience that I'm having. Right? Give yourself that space and notice how you're feeling. And then timestamp. So I kind of grouped these next two bits into one section for the sake of clarity. So for timestamp and ask questions. So notice if your fear is rooted in the past or the present. So for this example, our past fear narratives. Maybe you're thinking, oh, I'm not the kind of girl who can just go off to Paris all on her own, right? I'm not that strong and confident. I wouldn't know what to do, right? Okay, so then ask your questions of that fear. Are these actual truths, right? Who says that you're not that kind of girl who can't do those things, right? Who decides that you're not the strong and confident person that's able to just go off to Paris on her own, right? You do. No one else decides that but you. So are you deciding in this moment that you're not that girl? Well, then I guess you don't get to go to Paris, right? So you get to decide in that moment how you respond to that. A future fear narrative of this situation would be, what you're worried might happen, right? When you get there, you're worried you might get taken and Liam Hemsworth doesn't know when to come get you, right? So now this is too where, like I said kind of in the beginning, some of these are human survival fears, right? It's totally, what's the word? Able fear. It's a totally valid, thank you. It's totally valid fear to think about that when you're going and traveling internationally on your own, especially as a woman. I'm not trying to downplay that at all, but don't let that run you. Do not make all of your decisions based out of fear. Notice that that's a fear that you have and ask yourself how you can pacify or how you can rectify it, right? If you are afraid of something like that, get yourself some pepper spray. Familiarize yourself with the safety and protection agencies in France if that's where you're going, right? And just take the steps to remove yourself out of fear. Don't let fear be your narrative, right? You can notice it, and then you can take smart actions to better prepare yourself for the situation, but don't let that run you, right? So that's an idea, that's an example of sort of like a human-based fear and how that might show up and how we can work through that in a situation like this. Hey, Rye. So another future-based fear narrative, you're worried that maybe I'll feel lonely, or I'm worried that I'll look silly by being myself in Paris, right? If someone sees me just sitting all by myself with my little baguette and my single glass of red wine in front of the Eiffel Tower, they're gonna think I'm a loser, and they're gonna think that I'm silly and that I have no friends, and what will I do? Oh my gosh. So this is where we ask ourselves those questions then after we've decided, okay, this is a future-based fear. I'm worried that people will think that I look silly and stupid sitting by myself in front of the Eiffel Tower, which you shouldn't. Get you. You would look fucking awesome. Sorry. But ask yourself, is this an actual failure, right? If people thinking that I look silly, or I'm perceiving that people think I look silly and alone because I'm alone, is that an actual failure? No. Odds are they're not even going to notice you. They do not care. This is just a story that you are telling yourself to hold yourself back. This is a story that you are telling yourself because this is something that you feel at some depth about yourself, and you're projecting that onto other people, and you're projecting it into this situation, and you're using it as an excuse and a scapegoat to not apply yourself and not step outside of these limitations that you have because you don't actually want to. But you can, right? And I'm not saying that you don't want to, like you never want to, but there's a part of you that feels comforted by that. And that's okay to realize that, but we have to get past that at some point, right? We want to get past that at some point. So do it, right? So those were both the timestamp and asking yourself the questions. Like I said, I kind of grouped them together for the sake of clarity, right? In that situation. So in this scenario, to become that strong and confident person that you idolized in this situation who was able to go to Paris all by themselves, you often have to be okay with being alone and being uncomfortable, and be okay with maybe looking silly every now and then to get to that point. So you see how maybe to get to the points where, not maybe, all the time, to get to the points that we visualize and idolize for ourselves, we often have to put ourselves through the spaces and the times and the motions that we fear the most, right? They're kind of really stuck together. I was trying to think of an eloquent way to put that. They go together. Like rama lama lama ding dong. Last little bit of thank you for the hearts on my Grease reference. Last little bit of LTAC here, connect. When you visualize now your highest self, yourself in 5 years, your best version of yourself, how is she responding in this moment? right? You've been dreaming of this moment for years. You've asked all your friends who wants to go to Paris with you. No one took it up. So you have this moment now to go all by yourself and you're afraid. What does your highest bad bitch self do? Does she cancel her flight because she's afraid and she doesn't have anyone else to go with her and hold her hand? No. She goes by herself, right? And that's who you are, and that's who you are able to be, right? And that's what I want you to do for yourself, right? So when you connect and you see yourself in that higher vision and ask yourself what would they do in the situation, then apply that in this situation. It's like those bracelets, like WWJD, but WWYHSD. What would your highest self do? So that is our 4-step framework of working through fear of failure. LTAC. First, listen, timestamp it, ask questions, and connect with your highest self. Any questions or other kind of scenarios that you want us to work through this framework? Drop them in the chat here for me, and we can do that too. Heather, yes, fear is stretching our comfort zones. Absolutely. Every time. The goal of this here is you shouldn't fear failure, right? Shouldn't. Easier said than done. You shouldn't fear failure. What you really should fear is a life unlived. What you really should fear is a life that doesn't inspire you and motivate you every single fucking day, because that's what you deserve, right? And the only way to get there is if you allow yourself to fall or fail a few times, right? And that's really the only way, right? And that's okay. Okay, so if there aren't any questions or other scenarios that we want to work through, I'll give you a few journaling prompts here to close us out, and then we will wrap up. So these journaling prompts you can take with you and do at a later date, or even this evening if you have the time. You could do these if you are in a period of your life where you're experiencing a lot of this, or just kind of whenever you want to dive a little bit deeper into this. If you are into the sacred cycles or the wheel of the year, the framework that I teach for personal development, then this is a really great time of the year to do this, because it's a great time for shadow work and diving a little bit deeper into the things that hold us back. So this would be a really great time to do this. Anyway, I have 3 journaling questions for you, and I'll repeat them a few times so we can get them. So the first one here: if I trusted that every situation was unfolding for my highest good, what would I do, and what would I no longer do? So if I trusted that every situation was unfolding for my highest good, what would I do, and what would I no longer do? Okay. The second one here, and if anyone needs me to repeat any, just let me know. The second one here: if I fully trusted and believed in myself, what would I do, and how would I show up? So if I fully trusted and believed in myself, what would I do, and how would I show up? Ooh, that's exciting to think about. And last one here: if I embodied the energy of my future self, what is the first step I would take to move forward? So if I embodied the energy of my future self, what is the first step I would take to move forward? Yeah. Cool. I really hope that this was helpful or inspiring, or if anything, just entertaining to you guys. If you have any other questions about this, please send me a DM on here. If you did watch this and enjoy any bit of this, or thought any of it was cool or funny or silly or stupid, just send me a message and let me know. I have no problem hearing that I'm silly. I like it. But let me know how you found this lesson. If you have any other questions or any other specific scenarios that you want support working through that 4-step framework on, just send me a message on here. I'm more than happy to help you go through that. And I will see you in our next live session on here, which is later this month, November 29th, also at 5 p.m. Pacific. And it's all about how to make wellness routines fun and fluid and turn them into something you actually enjoy doing. I gave it a snappier title than that, something like why you can't keep your self-care routine or something like that. But that next session is November 29th at 5 p.m. Pacific time. Again, why you can't keep your self-care routine, and we will talk more about how to make routines fun and fluid and a better part of your everyday life, why you're struggling with keeping your wellness routines, and how to overcome that. So that is all I have for you this evening. Thank you so much for joining me, everyone here that was live and everyone that will be watching at a later date. I so enjoy doing this and hanging out with you guys. Thank you to Steven in the background for giving me hearts and refilling my water cup. You're really awesome too. And I will see you guys next time.